And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Once again, I'm your host Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have everybody here again if you're tuning in. Once again here on this January 26th, here on this Football Friday as well. We have a lot to talk about on this show for today, but before I get into that, once again, I want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. It makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that, let's get right into what we are going to talk about for today. I don't know why my brother's deciding to go into the attic right now, if you heard all that noise in the background. But anyways, so we're going to talk about, of course, the championship games. But I want to get into first talking about some more coaching positions have been filled. And, Bill Belichick, one of the who I thought would have a job, right now is still looking for a new home in 2024, and it's possible, will he be coaching in 2024? Because there's only two spots opened at the moment. So we'll talk about that. Then in the second part of the show, I'll talk about what a win would mean for each quarterback for Sunday. So we'll talk about that, what that can mean for their legacies. So I'll get into that. And then, of course, we'll preview the NFC Championship game and the AFC Championship game. Now, the NFC Championship game is being played after obviously they flip-flop every year. But to be honest, I think most people would agree that the AFC Championship game, I think most people are more excited for as opposed to the NFC Championship game. I don't know, just because of the quarterback matchup. I don't know. That's in my opinion, but I think both games will be good. Both games will be entertaining. So that's the rundown for the show for today. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about more coaching carousel news. So the Falcons and the Panthers, they hired their new head coaches. Raheem Morris to the Falcons. He was named the Falcons head coach. They hired him, and then Dave Canales for the Panthers. Dave Canales was the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he did a great job with Baker Mayfield this year. Although it was funny, I saw a comment that said they hired the guy, they hired him after the Bucs scored 9 points against the Panthers, which I thought was funny. But, did well with Baker Mayfield this year. 14 years of experience working under Pete Carroll between USC and the Seahawks. So USC in 2009. And then, of course, with the Seahawks from 2010 to 2022. Obviously, the Panthers, they're trying to, rebound from this horrible season with their offense was just horrible. Bryce Young did not have a good rookie season. And obviously that pick has been heavily criticized by a lot of people. And Dave Tepper came out and said, that's who he wanted, and they don't regret the pick. But, other people kind of wanted C.J. Stroud, and you see how C.J. Stroud did. But again, it also has got to deal with you got to be in the right system too. And, maybe that's it. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this pans out. Maybe he unlocks something with Bryce Young. But I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a crazy hire. But, again, he did good with Baker Mayfield this year, so maybe he can unlock something, like I said, with Bryce Young. And then, of course, the Falcons went with Raheem Morris. And the Falcons actually, they interviewed 14 different candidates. And he beat out Bill Belichick for the job. Bill Belichick had 2 interviews with the Falcons, and they elected to go with Raheem Morris. He spent 6 years on the Falcons staff from 2015 to 2020. He was an interim head coach. He was a DC and even a wide receivers coach. He was good with the Rams as the DC last 3 seasons under Sean McVay. But I know when I was watching the Michael Kay show, they were talking about his record, and it wasn't really that good as an interim head coach. But yeah, so the Falcons, they hire him. Again, a defensive guy, which I thought was interesting. I don't know. Listen, it worked out with D'Amico Ryans, who's a defensive guy. But I feel like in this age of the NFL, you want to have an offensive guy. And the other thing, too, is the Falcons, they don't have a quarterback right now. That's something that they need, because it's not going to be Desmond Ridder. When Taylor Heineke is a backup quarterback, he can win you some games. But again, he's a backup quarterback. So that was an interesting hire. But the big thing, and actually another thing too, offensive coordinator-wise, the Bengals, they promoted Dan Pitcher as the offensive coordinator. Actually, I think I might have said this already. But yeah, he's the offensive coordinator. I might have said this yesterday, but yeah, he'll be the new OC now with Callahan going to the Titans. So, but the bigger thing here is the fact that Bill Belichick is still, jobless. Because I don't know. For me, I know a lot of people talk about the game might have passed him by. He didn't win anything with Tom Brady, but again, it's Bill Belichick. I mean, now the one thing they were talking about on the Michael Kay show yesterday when I was watching, and this could be true, is maybe Arthur Blank didn't want to give Bill Belichick the keys to everything. Being the general manager, because again, Bill Belichick takes over as both in the front office and as the head coach. Some people are going to lose their jobs. So maybe they didn't want to sign up for that, and that's why they elected to go with Raheem Morris. But again, I think one of the biggest things, as we're moving into this new era of football, is you got to be able to adapt. And Bill Belichick is one of those people that needs to adapt, because since Tom Brady left, they made the playoffs the first season he left. Or actually, no, the second season, 2021. But then they got destroyed by the Bills. And then after that, each season has gotten progressively worse. And obviously this year was a disaster for the Patriots. So Belichick needs to adapt. Maybe he needs to take a step back, let somebody else, build the roster, and you be the head coach. Because I think Belichick could still coach. He could still coach a good defense. We know that. But it's just, drafting, skill positions players on the offense hasn't been, a strength. So, now there's only 2 openings. I keep forgetting about the Seahawks. They still need a new head coach. And then you also got the Commanders as well. But, I mean, I think for me personally, Seattle's probably the better situation because, they have, good players on defense. And, you look at their offense. That's another team that's missing a quarterback. Again, Geno Smith, he performed well his first season as the starter for the Seahawks, but then, it kind of took a step back in 2023. Again, the Seahawks are still competitive. They just missed the playoffs, but, they need to upgrade a quarterback. And, you look at what they have on offense. They have some young players on the offensive line that are good. You, of course, have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's coming off of a good rookie season. Kenneth Walker as well, coming out of the backfield. The Seahawks have a solid roster, and maybe that's where he could possibly go. But again, they got to also, set up an interview, and maybe the Seahawks don't want him. But it would be interesting if they kind of they told Pete Carroll to step down and they bring in Belichick. So I don't think it's going to happen. But again, that's a roster that, is solid, and that's where Belichick could go. Whereas with the Commanders, they're not as loaded as the Seahawks. We'll just put it like that. And they're again another team that needs a quarterback. That's why for me, I thought maybe the Chargers would have been a good spot for him, just because you have Herbert and the defense is really the weakness of the team. And he could coach a good defense. So I felt like that made sense, but they went with Harbaugh, which not a bad choice, of course. So now the question is, will Belichick coach in 2024? And right now, I don't know. Because those are your 2 options right now. Now, the other thing, too, is, again, they're talking about it in the media. That is also a rumor, again, just speculation, that and I think I brought this up already, but if Andy Reid retires, Belichick could just step in and be the coach and coach the Chiefs. But I don't know. I don't see it. It's interesting. I'm really surprised. I mean, maybe somehow a coaching job opens up that that we don't know about, and it kind of just happens, and Belichick goes there. But I don't know. Those right now, those are your two options: the Seahawks and the Commanders. But it doesn't seem like anything's happening. So, but it's just crazy that there's a possibility that Belichick just flat out doesn't get a job for this year. And I think I did see a headline where, like, if he sits out for this year and doesn't coach, that it's going to be even harder for him to try to get a job next year. But I don't know. I mean, I find it hard to believe. Is it really? Somebody's got to have interest in him, right? But again, there's not that many openings. So I don't know. It really is an interesting situation that's developing here. Because I thought, yeah, he's going to find a job, no problem. Someone's going to pick him up. But no, not the Panthers, no. Falcons, they interviewed him twice. And they went with Raheem Morris. So, we'll have to see. We'll keep an eye on this, in the coming weeks. But, yeah, this is very interesting with, what's going on here. Because I don't know. But, again, it could be, he wants more power in an organization. He doesn't want to just be the head coach. I don't know. But, again, people are saying the game passed him by because, again, these last couple of years, the Patriots really took a massive step back. So, but it's going to be weird if Belichick just doesn't get a job and he's not coaching next year. I mean, could he get a defensive coordinator job? Yeah, absolutely. But he's not going to want to do that. He wants to be a head coach, and he should, because he's, the greatest coach of all time in many people's eyes. Including myself. I mean, again, I've been alive since 2000. Belichick is, to me, the greatest head coach of all time. I wasn't alive for, Parcells really, or, Tom Landry, all these other coaches, Vince Lombardi, obviously. Yeah, like Belichick is the greatest coach of my lifetime. So yeah, he's the greatest coach of all time, in my eyes. But yeah, I mean, he's the greatest head coach of all time to a lot of people as well. Even with a lot of people being alive for, all the coaches I just mentioned. Even though Vince Lombardi is going way back. But yeah, it's again going to be interesting to see what happens here. So let me know what you guys think. With that, we are going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, I'm going to discuss the importance of a win for each quarterback on Sunday. If they get a win, what does that mean for them going forward? So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.